All Hit Radio.
Welcome to the X Zone, a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. Now, here's your host, Rob McConnell.
And welcome back, everyone. This is the X Zone. I'm Rob McConnell. We're coming to you from our broadcast center and studios in St. Catharines, Ontario, Canada, on the Talkstar Radio Network, Mutual Broadcast Network, and our mainstay, the X Zone Broadcast Network at www.xzbn.net. My guest this hour is Danny Stewart, and he is a folklorist. And he's a field researcher. He's collected over 400 pieces of lore from the field. Tradition bearer, on again, off again, university professor of humanities, and through the arts and English composition, currently finishing up his master's thesis in folklore from the Utah State University. And he's also building a ghost tour for Cache Valley, Utah. Wow, he's a busy man. Joining me now from Provo, Utah is Danny Stewart. And Danny, welcome back to the X Zone. How have you been?
Hi. Thanks for having me. I've been good, I think. I've been good, especially recently. So, yeah, I'm happy about that.
How do you go about collecting the folklore that you've collected, over 400 pieces of folklore? How do you do it?
Well, it takes some bravery, and it takes, just having the courage to walk up to people and businesses. I started very young. Like in elementary school, I would meet elders, older gentlemen and women who had stories to tell, and I would just end up having conversations with them, and that kind of helped me start my path. And ever since then, and especially in the last 20 years, I made it a point to go to businesses like your older establishments and just walk in and say, "Hey, what's going on? Anything new going on, or any types of weird stories I haven't heard about, or something like that?" And or I'll just hear rumors about people that might have a story, and I'll approach them. And then many times, people will approach me after they hear something on my ghost tour or me on a podcast, etc. But it really just takes the courage to walk up and ask questions, which is something that I think a folklorist needs to do if they are going to be part of a community. Let the community know you're there.
Tell us about your ghost tour for Cache Valley, Utah.
Well, I went to Utah State to get my master's, and I was going to originally write a thesis bringing together scientists and paranormal investigators and interviewing them about their opinions about one another to try and kind of calm the tensions that kind of exist amongst paranormal investigators and science, because there's a lot of negativity between the two. But I foolishly brought up the idea of building a ghost tour for Utah State, and Lynn McConnell, my committee chair, she was like, do that instead. I was like, okay, I will. And I shot myself in the foot because I created a monster. Instead of just writing a small thesis, I now have to write a meta-analysis looking into why people go on ghost tours, and then a how to build a ghost tour manual, and then the ghost tour itself, which I just barely finished the ghost tour part of the manual, and I'm currently working on the meta-analysis at the moment. Well, it's on sabbatical during October because I got too much stuff going on right now. But I kind of just did the same thing. I spent 2 years out in the field just talking to people around Logan and Cache Valley area, trying to find as many rumors as I could. And, that's how things start, are with rumors.
Hmm.
And sometimes these stories take a long time. These rumors take time to grow. And I got lucky by finding a few good stories, things that are just kind of weird and, definitely ghost-like stories. And then I have just a few little things that are just kind of, I don't know. I saw something here, weird stories like that hopefully will grow into something larger.
Hmm.
Like, for example, there was this gentleman who I interviewed. He was a retired policeman. I don't have his permission to say his name on the radio, so I can't say that. But he was like in his 80s, I think, and he actually lived in the apartment complex where I lived. And in the 1970s, early 70s, he was driving westbound. Or no, sorry, he was driving eastbound on one of the old streets coming from, I think, Tremonton into back into Cache Valley area, where he was passed by a truck, I should say, that had a man tied into the back of a chair in the pickup truck bed.
Okay.
And he pulls around and turns the lights on, pulls him over, and apparently these guys had found a dead body in a car or truck that had been submerged in the marshes. And he was completely submerged up to his neck, so something, birds, whatever, had picked apart all the flesh off of his body. It was just this skeleton, this man with a skull head tied in the back of this pickup truck. And he never found out what that was all about. Apparently, the rumor was, or the hypothesis was, that he must just had an accident and reared off into the marsh and got stuck and passed away. And that's kind of an example of some of the stories. And the reason why that story really hit me wasn't just because of the oddness of it, but there are stories of like ape-like men, monsters, Bigfoot-like things in that part of the area. Just rumors again that I kept collecting. Like, I saw this or I heard this, kind of back and forth kind of commentary. But that really intrigued me, and that was one example of like a non-ghost story. But it makes you think, when something like that happens, what does that leave behind? Is he still there?
Yeah.
So I've got that documented, and when I eventually do retell that story in front of people, I'm still working on a way to try and tie it into other elements to make it kind of, a workable story. But little things like that, you have these rumors, you don't really take you very far. But hopefully, as time passes, and if I reach out and actually get responses from the Cache Valley Police Department eventually, and I still haven't yet, I might get down to the bottom of it.
Something else that gives that story credibility is the fact that you heard it firsthand from the police officer that was involved in that stop and who actually was the witness to all of this, which is very
Right.
rare. Yeah.
Right. He was really, shocked at the whole thing. I mean, he initially thought he had a murder on his hands.
Yeah.
And he obviously flipped the U and headed towards him. But no, these people were just taking this body and to where it needed to go, and he followed them to the morgue.
Wow.
They went straight to the morgue. The way he tell, like, it's really important to do field work, and get these stories, from the people themselves, and not just so much, Googling. And if you can sit in front of someone and either be lied to or told the truth to, it's so much more important that way, I think. And
I agree with you 100%.
Community too, like with as a folklorist, I think the most important part of our job is our connection to the community.
Yeah.
And I've worked really hard, most all of my life to try and build a conduit to the community where people feel comfortable talking to me about these stories. And once they realize, I'm a folklorist and a tradition bearer, and I should describe, explain what those are, because like what a folklorist I think should be doing, and you're going to get a different explanation from folklorists every time you ask this question. I don't necessarily agree with most of the definitions of what a folklorist is, but I think the first rule is being part of the community, being part of the community that you study.
That's right.
Most importantly. And it not only gives you a credibility amongst, your fellow community members, but it gives them an opportunity to have someone to reach out to and preserve these stories. One story in Mormon folklore that keeps coming up all the time, and I don't do a lot of work with Mormon Latter-day Saint folklore, which is the predominant religion in Utah. There's plenty of people here already doing that, is being visited by deceased loved ones. And many times I will get an email from someone saying that my grandfather told me that he was visited by his deceased sister or mother, etc. My own grandfather, Edmund Spalding, a king among men in my opinion, and formerly the Utah Turkey King. He owned at one point several 100,000 turkeys, a turkey farm, but he claims that in the basement of his Orem home, there was a bedroom down there, and he was sleeping down there at the time, and a blue ball of light came through the wall and spoke to him with his brother's voice. That kind of archetypal story, that element is so common. And I'm only speaking for Latter-day Saint folklore right now. I'm sure it happens in many other religions, but just because this is in my own backyard, it's so prominent because you keep hearing these stories so often. I think it's important that people have a source to go to preserve these stories, and they will preserve them their own in their own journals, etc. But if it goes someplace other than their own journal, someplace that can possibly preserve it, like an article or a story, it makes them feel better, like it gives their deceased loved one a form of immortality. And this is their words, the people who've told me before, like, I want this story to not be forgotten. It was so moving to me. I never thought in my wildest dreams I would ever see my brother, sister, mother ever again before I myself passed on to the next side. It's a miracle. These are miracles in their eyes.
But what
and
you're
I believe them.
But what is also happening is that you are doing the same thing that the members of the First Nations used to do, is by sharing these stories and making sure that they've lived on and on, generation after generation after generation. So I agree with you that a folklorist is a very important part of society because it keeps society and history alive.
And it's unfortunate that many contemporary folklorists, and I'm going to probably get some guff for this, but I've already been saying this several times. I don't think that we're doing our job, not to the extent we need to be doing. I don't think we need to keep digging through the books and the internet and just regurgitating and picking apart things like the Slender Man 100 times. There's only so many times you can pick apart pieces of folklore, especially pieces of folklore that really have nothing to do with our community. If someone wants to study these other, international or national parts of folklore, that's fine, and that's their prerogative. I just think that as a local folklorist, like if you're in Utah, you are given an opportunity.
Danny, I've got to take my break, so please stand by. X Zone Nation. Okay. Danny Stewart's our guest. And if you'd like to find out more about Danny, his Facebook page is, just a second, I just had it here. It's facebook.com/Danny.B.Stewart. We'll both be back on the other side of this break. Don't go away.
Thankfulness for showing me the meaning of success. It hurts to be in love when the only one you love turns out to be someone who's not in love with you.
Welcome back, everyone. This is the X Zone. Danny Stewart is our special guest. His Facebook page is facebook.com/Danny B. I'm sorry, Danny period B period Stewart. And Danny, you were saying that you don't believe that folklorists are doing their jobs.
I think that we're getting kind of lazy because we're just relying too much on Google and books and
Right.
regurgitating the same stories. There's people, and we're focusing on elements like, political and things that are kind of more divisive in the research, things that aren't necessarily conducive to public folklore. I don't want to get too much into that just because it just ruffles too many tail feathers, but I just think we need to get back into the field, pull away from the computers, pull away from the archives. Let's start filling the archives again and stop using them all the time. There's so much folklore here. And as for example, I just finished writing an article for Utah Stories magazine on the Bear Lake Monster, which is Utah's most famous, although still relatively unknown, lake monster. When I sat down to write it, I realized there's nothing new to say about it. There's nothing. Like the last bit of actual information I've found on it, and where it's published, you can Google it anywhere, and you get the same stories about Charles C. Rick and the father and the son, and how they found the Bear Lake River area and the Bear Lake Valley. But there's like 5 or 7 sightings or stories of sightings, and that's it. And so my question is that why aren't we there asking questions? Because think about the creature of Loch Ness. There's a whole lore around that whole thing, and the community really cares about it. There is a whole community event. There's a whole community acceptance. There's a love, a reverence of this kind of thing, either if it's only as something silly or something in their legitimate in their minds. They celebrate it.
Well,
And everyone's
they also use it as a cash cow.
Yeah, well, that too, absolutely.
Yeah.
While Bear Lake, there's nothing growing. There's no one there doing any work, as far as I can tell. And I did some digging, and the last bit of information we really have about the Bear Lake monster is from the late 1800s. So why aren't we up there asking questions? I mean, I'm taking care of Utah County and Salt Lake County. When I was near Bear Lake, I was doing other stuff relating to the ghost tour. Why aren't there more folklorists up there just asking questions like, hey, is anyone still even talking about this up here? Because easily 6 out of 10 people, when I bring up the Bear Lake monster locally, they don't even know it even exists. Are people still even talking about up there? Is it even important to them, or has the monster actually died, literally and or figuratively? You know what I mean?
Well, that brings up an interesting point. When do you know enough is enough, and the subject is no longer appealing to anyone except the folklorist?
Right. They're still publishing articles on it relatively frequently. I think there's one just a year ago in a local newspaper. But the problem was all it did was regurgitate several of the stories that have been beat to death already.
Well, do you think that there's any information out there that would be able to revive the story that hasn't been published before? Have there been
I certainly would hope so.
have there been recent sightings? Is there anything that could point the finger to new evidence as to the actual monster being there and it not being nothing more than myth?
Right. And that's what I'd like to find out. And it may be up to me to do it, but we're not going to find out unless we go up there, we spend a week or two in that area and talk to people, talk to businesses. Go up to people who are fishing on the shore. Hey, does anyone still talk about this? You don't even need to ask, do you believe in the monsters? Hey, are any of the community members still talking about this? Does anyone still celebrate this? Is it still of any interest at all? Because there used to be a pontoon boat shaped like the monster that would give tours on the lake, and I don't even think that's still in service right now. So unless we go up there and ask the questions, and people will probably ask, well, why don't you do it, Danny? Well, because for one, I've already collected 400 pieces of other folklore, and I'm already working on other pieces of folklore and collecting constantly. Like just the other day, I collected a reptilian humanoid sighting right here in Provo, Utah. So I'm doing my work. I'm doing what I need to do. I don't live up there, but there are other folklorists up there. Why not go up there, spend some time, and just ask questions? You don't need sonar, you don't need a boat, you don't need to do any of that nonsense. You just need to go talk to people. And that's what a folklorist should be doing, is talking to people and
But
asking questions.
I think the times have changed where people want evidence that the just the folklore doesn't cut it anymore.
It doesn't, but unfortunately, I've learned that evidence really isn't there in many cases. And I don't really even, as far as the Bear Lake monster goes, there isn't hasn't been any real evidence of it ever. I take the Native American tales about it much more seriously than I do any of the more contemporary sightings of it. I guess I should say the 1800 sightings from the proverbial pioneers. But I'm sure there are tales of some type of water god or nature spirit that we haven't collected, and it's not my job because I'm not a Native American. I don't feel comfortable being the person to dig into that because, for one, I don't want to misconstrue the meaning of certain words, their interpretations. You know what I mean? I don't want to be offensive. I don't want to be rude. I would very much like to interview people who or Native Americans may have some type of insight about terminology or legends or like water babies or serpents. Like people have claimed that there was like fire dragons down there. Is that based on some type of Native American lore? Or is it based upon some nonsense that the pioneers built up just to bring people to the area? I don't know.
I think one of the things that the internet has done over the years has made people very skeptical about what they read. There's a lot of disinformation out there. And I think that this is why people want evidence. For example, I'd love to believe in UFOs. I want to see the evidence. Remember the old lady who did the Wendy's commercial, "Where's the beef?"
Absolutely.
Like, you know, I want to see the beef just like Bigfoot. So many people say they've seen Bigfoot, yet everybody has a cell phone that has a high definition camera and we're still not getting the photos. Why not?
That's a good question.
Yeah.
And I leave that to the paranormal investigators, where I am more interested in just the story, because I personally believe that we're not going to be proving anything anytime soon, because we've been trying for such a long time.
Then what is the actual use of that story if it's nothing to be proven?
History, oral tradition, culture, and one of the jobs of a folklorist is to understand why these stories are told. I don't so much do that. Many of the others do that. But I am more of the field researcher and the field collector. I've always told people every time I'm in an interview, like, I don't really care about proving anything at the moment, simply because I'm not in the position to prove anything. But by collecting these stories, and every time there's a new story, it gives some sort of cultural and historical significance to the area. Like for my ghost tour example, on my ghost tour, I have less than 4% of all the stories I found in this 1 mile circular radius. So it raises the question, why are there so many ghost and creature stories on Provo Center Street and Freedom Boulevard? And there's many stories surrounding that aren't even on my tour. I find that there's a certain pride that many of the storefronts have relating to their story. TaylorMade, which is a cosmetic and costume store on Center Street, for years they were just incredibly proud of their spirit. I mean, many of the people, they're not sure. They argue if it's a woman or a man. There's nothing but anecdotal evidence for that. They always would talk about how it always makes a mess, like poltergeist activity. The old manager, Jesse, he'd get so frustrated. He'd come in the morning and something would be tipped over, like a whole rack of product would be pushed over. In the back of the store, they have these tall aisles of peg items. They're like costume materials and whatnot. And it's like something would walk down the aisle and just have its arms stretched out and just flip things off the pegs. And he'd come in the morning, he'd go, "Oh my gosh, geez." But you'd ask anyone there, and 95% of the employees would go, "Yeah, I've seen the ghost, or I've heard the ghost, or I felt the ghost." And then there's B&H Pharmacy, which is also on Center Street. Taylor, the current pharmacist there, he's told me so many times. They do compound pharmaceuticals there, where they have to, I guess, make the pharmacy medications right there on the spot. And he'll go in like 2 o'clock in the morning, and he by himself to do this, because it was like an on call from the hospital. And he'll go, "I just want to see him. I believe in him. I think he's here." I have many of my employees who have encountered him, but I haven't seen him yet, but I want it to happen. Maybe it's hope. And I think a lot of times people believe in these things because it proves the existence of an afterlife in their mind. And so when they have something that's potentially this sacred, like
Mm-hmm.
a spirit that's lingering for whatever reason, sometimes they celebrate it. Did I talk to you about the ghost of Shaky Jake last time I was on?
I can't recall, to be honest with you.
May I talk to you about that?
Sure.
So there was this bar on Center Street called City Limits, and it was an old bar, old bar, and it looked very much like Moe's Tavern from The Simpsons. It had that type of motif about it, and no hyperbole. And so in 2016, my wife Tara and I, we were walking around. This is right when I was restarting my ghost tours to go public again after a sabbatical, and when I was up in Oregon before that. And I went in and I start talking, and I say, "Is anything weird going on here?" Because I'd heard rumors. And she says, "Oh, you mean our ghost?" And no sooner than she said that, this very eloquent drunk comes out of nowhere. His name was Bruce, and he goes, "I can tell you about Shaky Jake." And so he puts his arm around me, and he starts telling me this story how Jake was one of the most favorite customers in like the early 40s, late 30s, sometime around that area. But he had a bad day, and he went and took his life at the nearby Imperial Hotel, which is no longer there. Whatever the case, he came back and he's been there ever since. And so there are all these stories of encounters, like him picking up shot glasses, throwing across the bar, things moving, whispering in people's ears, etc. Well, long story short, COVID
Listen,
happens.
we're going to have a bit of a cliffhanger because I do have to take my final my break here at the bottom of the hour. So
Okay.
please stand by.
Right on.
Oh, wow, fascinating stories. Our guest this hour is Danny B Stewart, and he's a folklorist. His website is his Facebook page at facebook.com/Danny period B period Stewart. And Danny and I will be back on the other side of this commercial as we continue here in the X Zone from our broadcast center and studios in St. Catharines, Ontario, Canada, on the Talkstar Radio Network, Mutual Broadcast Network, and our very own X Zone Broadcast Network, www.xzbn.net.
When the only one you love turns out to be someone who's not in love with you, it hurts to love the soul when deep down inside you know she will never want you, no matter what you do, and so you cry a little.
Well, beer, we've had some great times. When I was 17, I drank some very good beer. I drank some very good beer I purchased with a fake ID. My name was Brian McGee. I stayed up listening to Queen when I was 17.
Where is the moment we need it the most? You kick up the leaves and the magic is lost. And tell me your blue skies fade to gray. And tell me your passion's gone away. And I don't need no carrying on. You stand in the line just to hit a new low. You're faking a smile with the coffee to go. And tell me your life's been way offline. You fall into pieces every time. And I don't need no carrying on. 'Cause you had a bad day. You're taking one down. You sing a sad song just to turn it around. You said you don't know.
And welcome back, everyone. This is the X Zone. I'm Rob McConnell, and our guest this hour is Danny Stewart. He's a folklorist. Excuse me, and if you'd like to find out more about Danny, visit his Facebook page, facebook.com/Danny.B.Stewart. All right, we've got to the other part now. We had to do a cliffhanger because of the commercial breaks that we have to take. So please continue, and I'm sorry for having to have cut you off.
No need to apologize. I get it. Well, so I'd collected some various different stories about Shaky Jake interactions. And what was really interesting is that the people that were there, the employees and the customers, loved him. Like, they were hesitant to talk to me initially until they realized it wasn't some hack that was going to, manipulate it or anything like that.
Right.
Well, COVID comes around, the end of the world, and the bar closes temporarily. Well, then it reopens. Months later, everyone had to get new jobs, etc. So it's a whole new set of employees. So I wait like a month or so, and I go in, and these all new employees. I say, so does anyone still talk about Shaky Jake? And the bartender is very rudely, he goes, well, I don't care about Shaky Jake. It's like, I don't care what you care about. Are people still talking about him? He says, yeah, some of us are, some of them are, whatever, like that. And I said, all right. Well, because of the rudeness of the new customers, and I'm sorry, not customers, the new employees, the bar closed permanently, and it's closed right now. But this gives me an opportunity, because eventually it will be purchased again and reopened. And when it is, I'm going to go in, I'm going to wait a year, go in and start asking questions, and at which point we're going to witness either, again, the death of a ghost, literally or figuratively, or the continuation of a ghost story. And it will be really interesting to see, if it does continue, what form it will take, if the stories will be the same, etc. And I'm hoping that my ghost tours don't pollute this, and it may have already have a little bit, but I'm hoping that if I give it enough time and people, get their roots in the area, the new employees and whatnot, that there will be some new stories to tell, or none at all. And if that is the case, that will be a really interesting folkloric type of research, I think. And I'm really looking forward to it. It's for sale right now for $800,000, and if I could afford to buy it, I'd do it in a second and open a cafe there. But yeah, things like that. Just watching how stories thrive, how they evolve, how they are reinterpreted by different people, and then how they die. Just like potentially the Bear Lake Monster may have died because we're not talking about it anymore. It's not really that important to people. The community may or may not care, or we're just not doing the work that's needed to be digging into it. Does that make sense?
It makes sense, but I've been doing this show for so long that I've seen many legends come and go.
Yeah.
It seems that people just get tired of having all these legends with no meat to grind, so to speak. But it's just like the paratourism industry now that's popped up. You've got all these people going to the same locations that are haunted, or where there's supposed to be UFO sightings and other parts and activities within the paranormal. And they keep going, and they keep going, and sometimes they hear something, sometimes they see something, sometimes they don't. And you have to wonder why they keep doing it. What are they looking for? Are they looking for validation of their own beliefs? Are they looking for validation of other people's beliefs? Are they doing it for the thrill? What's the reason?
I think it's many.
Yeah.
I think there's many different reasons. I don't think there's just one reason why someone is interested. Like I said, some people may want to validate their belief in something extraordinary, either ufological, extraterrestrials, or even metaphysical, like ghosts and spirits, or even something more legendary like a plesiosaur, or like a monster in a lake. The idea of the other, these are fascinating topics, and they give a certain spice in our life. Like for me, I think I said this before, I have a very unhealthy collection of horror films, and I love horror, I love spooky things, but I know what I'm going to be getting. I know what I'm getting with these horror films and these scary movies. I, on the other hand, prefer to try and find these new stories. Like, granted, I'm saying things like, yeah, I want to find out more about the Bear Lake Monster and see if it's still alive.
Sure.
While the majority of my work is me trying to find stories that have not been told yet. I'm trying to find the stories that have not been told because I myself am interested in seeing just how miraculous potentially my community is. That's for me. I get out of it as I see all of these people, these human beings just like me, having these quote unquote experiences that sometimes change their lives. And it many times gives them these faith crises. I've had multiple people come on my tour multiple times, like a year or so after coming on at once, and saying that they haven't stopped thinking about it because of the questions I raise. My tour isn't about fear, and it's not about proving anything. It's a good story. It's edutainment more than anything. It's
Mm-hmm.
like if a stand-up comedian and a professor had a baby. That's what you get. It's funny, it's entertaining, but it's equally informative, and it keeps people's attention. And when I bring up like my own experiences with like the metaphysical, or when I was very young, growing up on the haunted farm, and I raised the question like, were things looking out for me because I was so alone and so young? And people seem to think that they have had deceased loved ones watch after them, like I mentioned before. And I think some people are trying to validate their own beliefs and their own questions by looking at this, which a lot of people don't. A lot of people just want to have it for fun. And I think like the things that are on TV, like the ghost hunters and that, which personally I think makes people like me look bad. Uh, they're doing it for more excitement purposes. Well, when you're actually sitting down with something and hearing the crack in their voice, when you can feel the emotion of how this event affected them, and they truly believe it, and they want answers, and they think I'm some empath, they think I'm some expert, and I often have to say like, I'm not an expert on anything. I'm just collecting stories here. I can tell you what I've heard from other people and how there have been many other people like you who have had these experiences, but I have no answers for you other than to say that you are not alone.
What has been the most spookiest thing that has ever happened to you or anyone else when you're doing your ghost tour?
Well, there's this story. I wish we had enough time to tell the whole thing, but there's this story of a sighting of a contemporary Slender Man in this alleyway.
Now,
It's
what is that? What is a Slender Man?
a Slender Man is, well, it's an internet sensation. It's like this tall, slender, metaphysical being, sometimes depicted in a suit. It's become a huge part of internet pop culture, but people seem to think it originated with the internet, which it didn't. It's been around for potentially centuries in different forms over the world. There are many different variations. Like there's I think it's pronounced Mimis in Australia, Mimis. I'm hoping I'm not mispronouncing that. Who are these very slender beings that can hide between cracks and mountains and wrap themselves around trees, and they're very devious beings in some of the lore. So they mirror one another in many different ways across cultures. So there was this gentleman who I've spoke to many times who said that he would look out his window back when there was this old house. He was on the top floor that looked out in this old alleyway, and he would see this tall, slender man, pale-faced, in like a suit, staring at him. It's like 7 feet tall, and it would like kind of dissolve into nothingness. And he claimed he saw it on three different occasions. This man also said that he found a 3 foot tall naked gnome with big red eyes in his room one evening, and when he woke up
Mm-hmm.
and sat up, it screamed and ran away. Whatever the case, I was telling this story, and one of the attendees was just got this white look on her face, like just pure fear. And I was in the midst of telling the story, and it wasn't until we started walking away, I was like, "What just happened?" And she says, "I saw the Slender Man watching you talk about it. It was standing up on the side of the building, looking down at you." And I was like, "You're putting me on." But the tears in her eyes told me otherwise.
But
Because when she started to explain it to
mhm.
me, she had this very, very like deadpan look of fear. She had a tear in her eye, and she was just like, "I saw it, Danny. It was there. You're
But once,
telling a
but
true
once,
story."
once again, how do we know that it was really there? That she did not want to see it so badly that she, in her own mind, saw it there. And when people do it, that happens with people, they truly believe that they're seeing what they are manifesting.
Oh,
So,
absolutely.
yeah.
You don't. You don't. And that's why you can't really hope to prove anything.
Hmm.
You just have to be respectful to these stories and say, okay, I believe that you saw something. I believe that you think you saw this. I believe you. But I'm not going to try to debunk you.
Right.
I'm going to just say, hey, you saw something, and whether it was my words that helped you manifest that in
Hmm.
your imagination, maybe it was an imagination, whether it was a thought form or a tulpa, or it was just purely something you thought you saw, a light flashing at the right time, and you think you saw it standing there. But I've spoke to her once more a few years later, and she still, this day, she says, yeah, I saw it. And I said, you're sure? And she says, yeah, I saw it there. And I'm like, all right,
Hmm.
I'll believe you.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
Danny,
It's
stand
fun
by.
stuff.
We've got to take our final break. And Exonation, Danny Stewart is our special guest. Fascinating young man. And if you'd like to get more information about Danny, visit his Facebook page, facebook.com/Danny.B.Stewart. Don't forget, this coming Saturday, October the 12th, in Halifax, Nova Scotia, is the 2024 Halifax Paranormal Symposium. And it is going to be running from, I believe it's 8 o'clock in the morning until 6 o'clock at night. Please, if you want to get more information, tickets are going fast, vendor booths are going fast. It's going to be a great time. Visit www.ppri.net. And Danny and I will be back as we wrap up this segment and tonight's show on the other side of the short break. This is the X-Zone. I am Rob McConnell, and you're listening to us on the Talkstar Radio Network, Mutual Broadcast Network, X-Zone Broadcast Network, and of course on your hometown radio, Classic 1220, CFAJ in St. Catharines, Ontario, streaming at classic1220.ca.
You kick up the leaves and the magic is lost. Tell me your blue skies fade to gray. Tell me your passion's gone.
Ivan was an old bear tracker. Tom was a man with dreams. And Ernie came along and I wrote the songs about a creature that few's ever seen. Monsters, myths, and mysteries, legend, tales, and facts. It brought us all together, and it's a reason for the fact. Up in North California, where the redwoods reach the skies, 3 men with a goal and a pact that they'd hold, and a promise till the day that they died. Answers to the questions no one's found before. Driving determination, the only key they had to unlock the door. Monsters, myths, and mysteries.
Danny Stewart's our special guest. He's a folklorist in Provo, Utah. His Facebook page is facebook.com/Danny.B.Stewart. Danny, earlier you were saying, talking about what was it? I can't remember the exact words used, but that, in essence, that the paranormal and science are at odds. Why do you think that is?
Well, I think that there is scientists study nature and they try to find the truth of it, and unless there's any real evidence for it, that they're not really going to pay much attention to it. And I think rightfully so, because there's a lot of noise out there with the paranormal realm.
Mm-hmm.
I've been called a fool before by people who think I'm a paranormal investigator, and I'm not saying any disrespect towards them. I just make it very clear I am a folklorist before anything else. I remember one time when I was teaching at Utah Valley University, I helped to bring Dr. Jeffrey Meldrum to UVU to give a lecture, and it was an incredibly well standing room only auditorium lecture. But there was one of the chairs of the science program who kind of was just very negative about the whole entire thing, even though all we were doing was giving him a voice to talk about the science that he had discovered so far.
Mm-hmm.
And just the scoffing of it. I think paranormal investigators and folklorists need to get their vernaculars, our choice of words that we choose, and then the idea of belief. I don't think belief really plays a big role in science in the beginning, and I think a lot of people want there to be a monster, where a lot of scientists and other people want to find out the truth itself. And that's kind of why I've given up years ago on ever really kind of finding any kind of truth, because I've accepted the fact that I don't think we'll ever find it. I don't. Like I said once before, I'll never believe another photograph or film footage of every kind, any kind, ever again, because of AI. I never will. I'm gonna have to see a specimen right in front of me. I gotta pet the Membe before I'll believe in it. You know.
I know exactly what you mean. Exactly what you
And
mean.
it's well, right. Well, here's something out. My mentor, Dr. Paul Bybee, and he was on my undergraduate committee, and him and I worked together frequently. We are doing a lecture on the Loch Ness Monster at Utah Valley University on October 15th. It's a dual lecture in the library. Not, I apologize. The Science Lecture Hall, room 134 at 7 o'clock. I'm going to be talking about the folklore of Loch Ness, and he's going to be talking about the science of Loch Ness. He and I did a lecture on Membe and living dinosaurs in Africa in 2013, and when we advertised it, people thought we were going to be debating and fighting over it. But the fact of the matter was, and is, we're very much on the same page, and we're just trying to, get around the noise of it.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm intentionally shorting my half of the presentation so that he has more time, because he's going to be taking a very pragmatic approach towards Loch Ness, looking at the ecology, at the flora, the fauna, and all these kind of hypotheses, from giant salamanders to giant eels to all other kinds of things that could and potentially could not be in Loch Ness and be the creature. Well, I'm going to be talking about, some more fun parts. I'm going to make it very fun, talk about the interdimensional hypothesis and like the ghost of Loch Ness kind of thing, and even the plesiosaurs, or the giant frog sighting, or the weird camel giraffe sighting kind of thing. Bring those up as like, these are the kind of things that keep being seen, quote unquote, or reported in and around Loch Ness, and they've been going on for a very long time. Yeah. Why? Why does this continue? Is it because it's just a cash cow? Maybe. It might be. But there's always that chance, and I leave the door open always for something to be there. I mean, I have a lake monster like a mile away from me in Utah Lake. It's one of the most unspoke of lake monsters that I'm aware of around me. I mean, there's these sightings of these giant serpents. There's water baby lore. The lake itself is cursed. Like, the deepest it gets at some points is like 20 feet, and it's mostly just like mud. But there are planes still submerged in it. We've had athletes drown in it. Athletes during triathlons. And no one's saying this, but it kind of looks like and feels like it's a little bit cursed. And in 2000, I collected a story from a friend of mine, James Chase. He was a Hawaiian immigrant to Utah, and he says he saw something the width of a barrel drum, gold and silver in color, with bright yellow stripes down the middle of its back, surface and then submerge like a whale would. Probably a big carp or something like that, but whatever the case, he saw something. And some of the catfish in there get pretty big, not like, Asian catfish, like not that big, but pretty big. And there's something splashes along this. Someone might mistake that for a monster. But I really, really love just the lore of things. And I think that's why folklore is so important, because it's not only something that preserves stories. Storytelling itself is what we need to keep people together, I think. I think it holds communities together. Even if it is something as somewhat as silly as what like a lake monster might be. But folklore isn't just these scary things. It's also foodways. It's how to make clothing. It's like, how many people do you know can still make a pair of pants from scratch? I know like 3. That's it. That's folklore. Your grandmother's apple pie. That's folklore.
But once again, I think that folklore is a personal choice. Like to me, I'll be honest with you. So, it's of no consequence to me personally. So why should I be interested in it?
You don't have to, but many people are.
Like the lake in Utah.
Mm-hmm.
Why would I be interested?
People here
in that?
should, though. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. See what I can't understand is, you're saying people here should. But isn't that their choice?
Well, absolutely. But they don't know about it. So at least know about it. You know what I mean? And that's why I'm preserving this. To at least know that you have these stories. Not to prove anything, not to, make them pay attention to it, but just know, like, hey, these stories are here and they exist.
All right.
And
Now,
that's
are
it.
these stories are in books? They're online, so they have the opportunity, if they
Absolutely.
so wished, on finding out about it, right?
Hmm. But they don't. They don't go out to look for it. And
Because
that's their prerogative.
because they're not
I-
interested in it.
But then when I bring it up, they're like, oh, huh, I wasn't aware of that. Interesting.
So do they go running to the lake and check it out?
Sometimes they do. It's really funny. Sometimes they do. They go, I went down there to look for it and I didn't see anything. I said, well, yeah, it's probably not even there. It's just a story. But it's a fun story. It's to be entertained and to put a little bit of a spark into your life.
I agree, but in today's world, it's a fast-paced world. And
Absolutely. It's unfortunate.
do we really have the time to sit and think about folklores when there are so many other things that are more important?
Well, I think we can sit and think about, all the terrible things going on in the world and focus on that, or we can take a minute to think, wow, there's something kind of fun and
But
weird going on in my
but the
backyard.
terrible things that are going on in the world affect us,
Absolutely.
where the lake doesn't.
But sometimes some of these events and these stories will help pull the gun out of someone's mouth. Takes them out of like their little depressed state and they think, that's kind of funny. And even if it is just funny to them, if I put a smile on their face or kind of just brought like a twinkle in the back of the head, like, huh, that's funny that people actually believe this. And that they, especially locally, these Mormon pioneers supposedly having connections to like the Bear Lake Monster or supposedly seeing the Utah Lake Monster, etc. It's important to me, and really, it's a labor of love more than anything. Like, I'll never stop. Even if I didn't get paid to do this, I would never stop.
Well, I
I've
can
done this
understand
since
that, and
birth.
I can appreciate that, but
Well, I'm not, yeah, and I just think that it's more personal to me. It's
it's very personal to you. I can hear it.
It's an obsession. It's my Moby Dick, so to speaking. I like that you're pushing me on this, so it's important that come up, and many people don't care about it. But
But-
as a folklorist, I think it's still important to preserve these things, even if there's only 15 people that ever read the story.
I think
At
you're
least
more
it
of a
won't
his.
die completely. It won't
I
die
think
completely.
another name for a folklorist is a historian,
Yeah,
and
and
his
my undergraduate
yeah.
is in history, but it's I see what you're saying, and the majority of people don't. But then the people that come on my ghost tours, they're always like, I want to believe, I want to hear more.
That's why
I've had these
that's why
encounters.
they're on the tour. They want to
Yeah.
believe.
Yeah.
It's a preference of choice,
Mm-hmm.
and I agree with you. It needs to be there, but it can't be forced on people just because it's your passion. And
Oh,
when
no
you
one's forcing
and when you
anything.
said that they should know, that to me is showing me how strong your belief is that you're willing to say they should know.
Oh yeah. I think we need to know about what's around us in our
But that's
history.
you. But that's you.
I know. That is, but I'm a historian. As a folklorist, that's my job. My job is to dig this up and make sure people know. And if they listen to me, then they listen to me. If they don't, they don't. And many people won't be listening to me, and that's perfectly fine. But I want this stuff to be out there, and if they want to know about it, they should be able to find it
You see,
and be
I
educated.
look at folklore as being very regional.
Oh, it is
Yeah,
absolutely. It is.
so that's why what happens in Utah is very important to me, to you, I should say. But
Yeah.
when you're talking to me and the vast majority of my audience, they'll be going, yeah, so?
Well, I'm only speaking
Yeah,
to Utah, really, too. 'Cause
exactly.
that's why I do Utah, is because, yeah,
Well,
Utahns are interested in this kind of thing.
well, I think
Sometimes.
one of the greatest things that Utah has now is what's it called? Sister Wives?
Uh,
That TV show where this guy
People
Cody
seem to
has.
like that a lot.
Yeah. Hey, listen, the time has come when I must say so long with you, Danny. I wish you continued success. I think you're doing
Thank you.
something great. And it certainly was a great pleasure talking to you, and continued
for having me.
success. And I hope that you get all the educational qualifications and certifications and accolades that you so rightly deserve.
Thank you so much.
Danny, take care of yourself, and look
Take
forward to having you back on when you find out more fascinating and interesting folklore about Utah. Take care, my friend.
Take care. See ya.
Bye-bye, Danny. All right, Exo Nation, that's it for tonight. I'll be back tomorrow night at 10 o'clock as once again we cross the time-space continuum to this place that I call the X Zone. It's a place where people dare to believe and dare to be heard. It's a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. Monday through Friday from 10 p.m. Eastern until midnight right here on the Talkstar Radio Network, Mutual Broadcast Network, X-Zone Broadcast Network. WVEX-FM in Midland, Michigan is one of our FM affiliates in the U.S. And, of course, my favorite AM radio station, Classic 1220. Streaming classic1220.ca. So until tomorrow night, everyone, always remember to keep your eyes to the sky and your heart to the light. Good night, everyone.
3 men with a gold and a pact that they'd hold and a promise till the day that they died. Answers to the questions